Today I finally get to review the ViperXC. It's a wing that you've probably heard about already, so let's not mess around and get straight into it. Okay, so what exactly is the ViperXC? Well, it's a very fast, very efficient wing designed obviously for cross-country pilots. It's a very similar design to the Viper 5 and the Viper 6. It has the same cell count, the same profile, the same line plan, basically the same aspect ratio, but there's a few differences that make this wing more suited to cross-country flying than the other two. First of all, quite a big difference is that the ViperXC is heavier than both the Viper 5 and the new Viper 6. This means that it doesn't jump around so much as you're flying through thermic conditions, but it also means that you're probably going to get a bit more life out of the wing with that heavier material. Secondly, the lines are sheathed, meaning that if you snag them on rocks or you're taking off in rough areas, they're a bit more protected. However, this does affect the efficiency slightly. I say slightly because you're not really going to notice it unless you are a comp pilot or you're really focused on the fuel consumption. This is still very efficient wing. And last of all, the biggest change between the Viper 5 and the ViperXC, I'm hands off, I am flying straight and level. The roll stability is amazing on this wing, and that comes from these funny little winglets that are added onto the edge. Meaning you can check your fuel, check the GoPro's recording, or even just take a snack mid-air while flying along. Not have to worry so much about dabbing the brakes to stop that oscillation. A big bugbear that was there on the Viper 5. Let's not forget though that this is an advanced wing. You might be able to take your hands off and check your phone or for navigation, but it's still an advanced wing for very experienced pilots. The reason being is basically because of its efficiency. It moves around a lot in the air, although not as much as the Viper 6. The brake range isn't as long and it reacts a lot faster to the brake range than, let's say, a Roadster or a Speedster. It seems that a few people are jumping straight from a Roadster 3 on to the ViperXC, thinking it's a step down from the Viper 5 and the Viper 6. Now, it may not jump around so much, but like I said before, it's the same aspect ratio, the same line plan. It is an advanced wing. And if you go out and find yourself in thermic conditions, you could get yourself in trouble. If you panic brake or pull too hard on the brake or have a collapse and don't know how to react to it. A good example of this is flying 5,000 kilometers across Australia. I was flying the Speedster 3, it was a 24 meters squared, and my friend was flying a Viper 5, 22 meters squared. And even though I had 2 meters squared more, the fuel efficiency was a lot lower. I was burning a lot more fuel than Andrew was on the Viper 5. But in thermic conditions, he was getting chucked around all over the place on the Viper 5. Because of that efficiency, he would feel every little bump. Whereas on the Speedster 3, I could just plow through those thermals with no worries. Don't get me wrong, I still got the feedback and still knew how turbulent it was. But at no point was I worried about that wing moving around so much. So if you are looking for an upgrade of the wing, bear in mind how comfortable you are in thermic conditions, because this wing, even though it's a heavier material and won't jump around as much as the Viper 5, it's still very efficient, so will react to thermals. If you're not comfortable in them, then you need to go for maybe a Speedster or Sirocco that'll plow through those thermals a little bit better. Let's go back to the winglets. Do these winglets mean that it is not as dynamic in its behavior? Well, yeah, a little bit. Compared to the Viper 5, it doesn't move around as much, but that's also a contribution from the heavier material. What that does mean, though, is that you get a more all-round wing, a more balanced wing for all aspects of flying. Something you can still throw around, doing big wing overs, loops, sats, if you're into it, or you could go hands-free and eat your sandwich on the long XC flying. You've got a bit of a heavier material that's going to last if you need to land out somewhere, or you got some rocky takeoffs. Because it's such an all-round wing and many more reasons, this beautiful looking ViperXC is my own personal wing, and it's something I've chosen to use for my future flying projects. Something I haven't mentioned yet is the risers and the trailing system. Comes as standard with 2D brakes, and as standard risers, so you've got to release the trimmers and then push on the speed bar. But there is an option to go for the PK risers. This means that as you push the speed bar, it works on a pulley system and releases the trimmers for you. Something that I decided to go for because I like the idea of being able to get the full range of speed just from the speed bar, not have to mess about with the trimmers. However, this does mean that with the PK risers, you get more pulleys, more lines, a bit more faff as you're setting up on the ground, something that you really need to be aware of while doing your pre-flight checks. And to be honest, because of this extra faff, unless you're doing competitions or you're playing about with maneuvers where you want to push the speed bar to get away from that surge, then it's not really worth it.
So to summarize then, the ViperXC is a very fast and very efficient wing designed for experienced pilots. It's something that you can throw around, still have fun with, but when you want to fly in a straight and level flight, you can release the brakes and focus on your navigation, eat a sandwich, whatever it is, because it is very roll stable. Comparing the ViperXC to the Viper 6 then, I'd actually say around 80% of pilots would be better off with the ViperXC. And the reason being that heavy material provides a bit more comfort as you're in long cross-country flights, but it's still very efficient. Only if you need that extra edge, if you're competing or you have a project where you need that extra efficiency, then you would go with the Viper 6. There are a few people jumping straight from the Rotor 3 all the way up to the ViperXC. Please remember that the ViperXC still is an advanced wing and you are likely to get caught out if you make this big jump. You'd be better off moving onto a Speedster or Sirocco to bridge that gap. So if you're an experienced pilot, you've got a few hours behind you and you're looking for something that is fast and efficient for those cross-country flights, but also something you can throw around and have some fun with, the ViperXC is the perfect choice.